Here we are at the end of another year, and here I am making my top 10 list of sapphic film and TV for 2023. For those that have watched a number of my videos, you will recognize a number of the ones on my list, and there is a definite theme to the things that I enjoyed this year. First on my list is Hacks. We got season 2 this year of the contentious relationship between the aging comic Deborah Vance and the young writer Ava, who is there to help her freshen up her material. Ava is established as bisexual, and that plays a simmering part in the storyline of both seasons. In season 1, there is a dream that has her questioning her feelings for Deborah, which is never explicitly addressed, but ends up underpinning the dynamic of the two. What is growing between them is a unique and deep bond that I love, both as a lesbian who had to live on subtext in the early days and as a person who loves true, meaningful friendships depicted on screen. And this is what's so brilliant about this show. It shows a delightfully complex and compelling relationship between the show's two protagonists as a means to explore meaning in aging, remaining relevant, and ultimately looking at the human experience through a painfully revealing and clever comedic lens. As for the gay, Ava is also seen having dalliances with a woman, and in one episode they end up on a lesbian cruise. The TV show Station 19 made it onto my list of favourite sapphic offerings for the year because I was impressed with how they culminated seasons worth of story building between Maya and Karina to create a dynamic and emotionally truthful storytelling. They met in season 3, and by season 6, which released this year, they had been given a beautiful storyline that was at times joyful and sometimes dramatic. Beneath all of that, Maya had been struggling from the effects of an abusive father that had seen her take on coping mechanisms that made her driven and ambitious, but sometimes to the detriment of herself and her loved ones. Through her relationship with Karina, we get to see the breakdown of the marriage in a way that deftly took me on a journey of personal growth. Maya was forced, through her love for Karina, to face her trauma, and it was done in a way that felt human and truthful. And then from that place, we get to see them trying to find their way back to each other. It showed me that it was possible to create a beautiful, profound, romantic relationship that doesn't just stay in that beginning phase, something that feels like I've seen 100 times. I did a bit of a mid-season video of my favourite Maya and Karina moments, link in the title cards. Les Amours D'Anaïs was a cute find this year. This French film follows Anaïs, a 30-ish woman who has spent her whole life flitting from one thing to another, from one lover to another, working haphazardly on a literary thesis, but unable and perhaps unwilling to root herself into anything. That is, until she happens to meet the wife of her latest lover, a successful writer who unexpectedly turns Anaïs's head. In typical fashion, she throws herself headfirst into pursuing this woman, and in spite of herself, the wife is intrigued too. There was something refreshing about this untamed protagonist going after what she wanted, with the type of unfettered energy that usually belongs to the youth. She walks to her own beat and will not be pinned down by anyone except perhaps this woman who's captured her attention, and only because she wants to be pinned down. There was something lovely and thoughtful about this one. Deadloch was an unexpected find this year. I did a full review of the show, I enjoyed it so much, but if you missed that, let me tell you about this delightful lesbian murder mystery. Dulcie is a sergeant where she and her wife live in the bucolic town in Tasmania, Australia called Deadloch. It should be a sleepy little town for the growing resident lesbian population, but it's anything but. Dead bodies are turning up, and Dulcie finds herself having to work with Edie, a loud-mouthed, brash Darwinian detective who can't wait to pin the murder on someone so she can get out of Dodge. As they learn to work together, the body count of men is rising, but the murderer remains elusive. I love this show for many reasons. They made it quite gay, the town's characters are delightfully odd, and the clever script kept me guessing as to who the murderer was. Just know that Edie is a bit much in the first few episodes, at least I thought so, but she does settle down. Definitely a top pick for the year. For something a little different, I thoroughly enjoyed Hannah Douglas's third comedy special with Netflix called Something Special. The special is about her wedding to her producer. You may remember her breakout comedy special called Nanette a few years back that took the comedy world by storm, and while this and her other special Douglas never quite hit the same nerve, she has solidified herself as probably my favourite comedian for the artistry of her joke telling. She has the ability to tell a narrative. This is not a small set of jokes and then on to another subject. She is telling a story, filled with witty observations and unexpected quips. Some jokes even being set up at the start only to be paid off at the end of the set. Best of all, Hannah is queer, which features heavily, especially in Nanette and Something Special, but you won't get the same jokes you might have come to expect regarding these subjects. I recommend you go watch all 3 of her specials if you haven't yet. This next one is not one I expect a lot will agree on. At least it seemed like the response from the sapphics on this one was relatively tepid, and look, if you're looking for a lesbian love story, agreed, this is not the movie to watch. I think it resonated with the classical music crowd a whole lot more. It follows Lydia Tarr, a renowned composer-conductor. When a young, talented celloist arrives on the scene, she is captivated by this woman in spite of being married with a kid. This will lead her down a path where her arrogant abuse of power is brought into the light, and in so doing becomes a study on how power can corrupt. What I appreciated with this film was the nuance. It definitely has that European sensibility about it, offering up what felt like a very specific kind of story, so much so that I actually wondered if it was based on a true story. It's a cerebral kind of film, for sure. The role was written for Cate Blanchett, and she is brilliant in the role. We also see Noémie Merlan in a supporting role, which you will remember from Portrait of a Lady on Fire. Speaking of complex sapphic ladies, I also really enjoyed Dead Ringers with Rachel Weisz in the leading role as the Mantle twins and the complicated relationship they had with each other. They work and live together as obstetricians and are looking to improve the experience for women when they give birth. This requires big money, and as they go about setting up their centre, Beverly, the quiet twin, starts a relationship with Genevieve, which Elliot finds difficult to accept. She is possessive of her twin in a way that means that something is going to give. This was a total mind twist of a series, but incredibly captivating. Rachel Weisz was in her element with this material, giving 2 distinct performances as each twin. It was also really gay. I did a review of the show, link in the title cards and the description if you want to find out more. For a lighter, more comedic tone, Double Parked is a series which looks at a lesbian couple who are trying to start a family. When they both end up pregnant at the same time, they have to navigate that along with the tensions of the relationship, preparing for the babies, and figuring out what their lives will look like. It's a delightful, bright, hopeful show, which sometimes is exactly what is needed. What I loved about it, besides the solid writing and acting, and also the fact that it's a Kiwi show, is that it explores an established lesbian couple, which is a bit more of a rare find. I also did a review on this. After finding Season 2 a weaker follow-up to Season 1, the morning show stepped it up again for Season 3. This show follows the ups and downs and scandals of a morning news TV show. We catch up with Bradley, who, at the end of Season 2, had been invited by her lover, Laura, to quarantine with her on her Montana ranch. 2 years down the line, and it seems that it didn't quite go as planned, but their love affair might not be over just yet. This is while there is a possible acquisition by a tech billionaire going on due to financial worries, and a secret that Bradley is keeping that could not only blow up her career but her relationship with Laura. This is a clever show which looks at topical issues, and I think it's a great watch. Again, I did a review on this, just as I also reviewed this next one. To say that Nyad is a sports biopic film is deeply underselling this movie. It was so much more than that. It's about lesbian Diana Nyad, a marathon swimmer, who had failed to swim across the Florida Strait from Cuba to the Florida Keys in the 70s. She decides to try again when she turns 60. With her best friend Bonnie, also a queer lady, they set about making this happen, and this will force Diana to face herself and her past in order to find the strength to do this. It was a film not just about an amazing achievement, but also about queer friendship, something I truly appreciated seeing, and about the transcendence that comes from pushing the boundaries of what is possible. From this list, I think it's clear that I gravitated towards works that had more mature women in them, which I think makes sense since I'm no longer a spring chicken, but I think this also signals the amount of work that has come out this year that offered roles for older women to inhabit, and it's beautiful to see women aging and having complex and interesting stories to tell that go beyond just that basic love story we often get with sapphic film and TV. I'd love to hear what your fave for this year has been. I wish you a wonderful new year, and in particular, I would like to thank my wonderful patrons, especially Morgana Amore and Jeff Marshall. Until next time, lady lovers.